is Joy Chong. The reason I'm here is because Paul Verchinsky, who is one of the organizers, asked me to present a different point of view because I've been only here for 5 years. Most people I know have been in Howard County for 30 years. So I could tell people my experiences of starting a new life kind of in this new place.
Okay. Peter Brunner. I'm a retired federal employee, and I also work for county government for a period of several years, but now I'm fully retired. I am 69 years old, have lived in Howard County since 1977, and hope to continue to live in Howard County for as long as they'll have me.
Disabled population with deinstitutionalization, as well as working with the mentally ill. And in my latter years, retired from director of a senior daycare program for Baltimore. Now, now I'm happily retired, happily with my wife, living a royal life in Savage, Maryland. Beautiful little town. And right now, in my life, everything seems to be coming up roses, and I'm not pushing up daisies. It's a wonderful time of life. I don't know whether you know it, but I'm also visually impaired. I'm totally blind. And living with my partner is quite an experience. And you know, we have our discussions about many things, including my mental health from day to day. But I guess most spouses do have that kind of discussion. And we're happy, health-wise, activity-wise, social-wise. I've gotten politically involved here in the county. I've even been having my shirt tail pulled to try to consider running for office. So I think things are going great. And I tell you one thing, it's wonderful to have a partner to work with. If I did not have a partner to work with in this highly urbanized county, I would have to be giving very, very serious consideration to leaving it probably tomorrow. Because as a visually impaired person and living in Howard County, and a person who wants to be very mobile, I don't think I could do it. And I have a question. How many people actually walked here today? Let me hear your eyes. How many people of you actually walked here today?
Say aye.
One.
Aye. For my car.
One. Good for you.
Do you see how restrictive that is?
We're going to move on, Ron. We have to be more because of time. All right. Mary, you're next. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mary Green, and in the last 6 months, I've lost my 102-year-old mother and my husband, who was 81. And I'm here to talk about my husband, who had never been ill a day in his life. His stroke, cancer, and 11 years of Alzheimer's. I was a full-time caregiver, and I still work full-time. So I'd like to tell you about the resources I discovered to save someone else a lot of pain. The story has a happy ending. We got a dignified death. The family is very close, so don't think it's all gloom and doom. But I did make some discoveries I wish I had made earlier.
Okay, great. What I'd like to do now is start out with some of these questions that we have on the slide, the screen. And we're just going to, if you want to have raise a hand or however you want to work it. This is not a quiz by any means. We just want to hear your experience and share it with the audience. And like I said, the audience can ask questions later. So the first bullet there says, what's working, not working in your longevity bonus years? And when you answer these, just take maybe a minute. So who wants, is there anyone who wants to go first?
Why don't we just go
Whatever you all desire. I'm flexible.
Well, what's working for us is financially things have been fairly reasonable for us. We did successfully move to a single-story home. We did successfully upgrade our bathrooms, and if you have some questions, I'd love to get into that because I think it's of use. We anticipate trying to stay in our home for as long as possible. We've become active in the village in Howard, and we're doing what we can to stay involved in the community and continue to stay active for as long as we can.
Terrific.
Okay. What's working for me? Actually, things are doing really well, exceeding my expectations. I'm going on to 73. Looking at my mother's generation, in my mind, I imagine at 73 I'll be walking very slowly, sitting back, not going out too much. I'm very active, so that's good. And not working is the uncertainty, worrying about when the illness will strike. Alzheimer's, stroke, heart attack, cancer, when would happen. I love to plan my life, and this is something I cannot plan, so that bothers me.
Ron, you're next.
I'd like to say, I don't think I'm even in my bonus longevity years yet. I'm just 69 and I was promised 3 scores and 10. So, I still got a while to go. But there's very little that I can think of off the top of my head that's not working in my life. As I said earlier, we're doing fine. We're managing a lovely home. I'm gardening. I'm active. I'm a walker. I'm not sure I can point my hand at something right now that says it's a big negative, having to do with living in Howard County, that is, or necessarily in my personal and family life. I'm happy where we stand as of today.
Thank you, Ron. Mary?
Let me pass until the what you wish you know.
That's fine, that's great. Okay, the next bullet says, what if anything surprised you? Anyone want to go there?
Well, the most recent surprise I had came last week. I think we were hearing before about contacts about Viagra and things like that. I was actually contacted, believe it or not, by Victoria's Secret. I'm not quite sure what to read into that. However, I do have an appointment with them next month to be fitted for my angel's wings.
Joy?
Okay, what surprised me, my husband and I, we lived in Albany, New York for 29 years. So we had friends, we knew where to go shopping, we knew the highways and so on. So before we moved, we were very worried. I told my friends that it's like a big tree. We're going to be pulled up by the roots. And so what surprised me was, after being here for 5 years, we're very happy. We made new friends and smaller houses working. And actually exploring new places is a lot of fun. So I strongly encourage you, if you have grandchildren, children far away, they ask you to move, don't be afraid. But you have to move before you are 75, definitely, because moving is very taxing. Moving big boxes, books, and so on becomes a lot of work.
Thank you. Ron, sir?
Okay.
What surprised you?
Statistically wise, I'm a black male, and at this point in my life, I should have had colon cancer, maybe prostate cancer, significant heart problems, prostate cancer. I'm very surprised I haven't hit any of those numbers yet. I've been happy and healthy and very active physically. What surprises me beyond most things in my retirement life, because I really planned not to be in a highly urbanized area such as Howard County, and I'm surprised that I'm still here.
We're glad you are, Ron. Big time. Mary?
What surprised me was Medicare coverage versus what we think of as nursing home coverage, possibly Medicaid territory. And it's this: if you have a relative, in my case I was the spouse, it's a little bit different if you're a son or daughter in this situation. But what surprised me is that Medicare for someone with Alzheimer's, even if the person has lost many basic functions of living, is not likely, no one is likely to admit the person to a hospital, no one is likely to cover care for any kind of rehabilitation because they consider it custodial care. So even though it's a neurological disease, there is no coverage there. And what's ironic is those same loss of functions definitely will qualify the person for a nursing home, but Medicare isn't going to cover that unless there are other medical issues that could be treated. So there's a real catch-22 between those two areas. And fortunately, when we get to the what were you happy to learn, I'll pass on a resource to help. But I certainly did not know that. We finally got respite care in the last 6 months of my husband's life, but there is a catch-22. It's considered a situation with Alzheimer's where the person cannot be rehabilitated.
Thank you, Alice. The next question we have for you is, how do you currently address health needs, housing, transportation, socializing, caregiving, loss of vision, hearing, and other needs? Now, the good news is you don't have to answer all of them. And if you don't want to, you don't have to answer any of them. But we'd like to have a bit of your take, again, a minute.
Well, my wife and I are quite lucky. As a retired federal employee, we were able to take our federal employee health benefit program coverage into retirement with us. So that helps cover any of the gaps in Medicare. So we're very fortunate about that. A couple of things that we did discover, though, that are healthcare related is that we do have long-term care insurance, and it is covered by John Hancock, which is staying in the game. However, they're working with Maryland to essentially double the premium. And so far, they've been giving us 15% increases in premium each year for the last several years, and that's going to be continuing for the foreseeable future. So long-term care is becoming quite costly. The other area that we had that was quite a shock to us was that it wasn't health care in our area. It was for my mother-in-law that we became caregivers for her, along with my sister-in-law, and that was hitting us up to the tune of about $10,000 a year. And while my mother-in-law had virtually no assets and should logically have qualified for Medicaid, getting her on Medicaid in the state of Florida is quite a daunting proposition because, quite frankly, the way the state works is they're trying to outweigh you in the expectation that you're going to die in the interim. And it took us 2 years to qualify a 95-year-old woman who had $1,000 in assets to get onto Medicaid.
Joy?
Okay, about transportation, I'm trying to learn how to take public transportation to go to Washington, D.C. or the mega bus to go to New York City. Someday, my husband and I will not be driving anymore, so I hope the county, the senior services department will do some training for seniors. I mean, right now we're all driving, we don't even look at the bus stop or look at the signs, but one day we will need to do that. So if we could have resources, maps, whatever, tell people if you want to go here from X to Y, from X, this is how you go. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Ron, sir?
Well, much of my transportation needs right now is pretty well satisfied. My wife still has her vision, and we get around quite well. But transportation is a worry of mine. Should her health fail, or she not be here for some reason, transportation-wise, I can get to the airport, not the airport, but the train station. I can go to Baltimore, Washington. I know generally a lot about both cities, and I can move around and get services. I'm not that keen on how transportation in Howard County would work for me, and that's one of my greatest concerns.
Thank you. Mary?
I totally agree about the transportation, just getting to the train stations. There's a wonderful bus that meets in a shopping center nearby us, but it only goes Monday through Friday. And I think being able to move us all around easily, knowing the schedules, it's like very difficult to piece everything together. And I think we're such an active community that that's definitely something that would help us.
Thank you. What I'd like to do now is just combine the next two, and then I want the audience to have an opportunity to ask questions. So it's, what do you wish you had known, and how are you preparing for the next decade?
What I wish I had known as a retired Fed who also qualified for some Social Security benefits, I wish I'd known more about the intricacies of a very, very strange law called the windfall elimination provision. And if you are a federal employee who is not covered under the FERS program and is therefore covered under Social Security, you're in for quite a rude awakening if you're subject to it. And including the fact that you are literally, this is one program where if you have a spouse, you are literally worth more dead than alive. Because if I do die, my wife's Social Security income will double over what we currently get combined. It's very, very strange law. What we're preparing for in the next decade is basically just trying to stay in place as long as we can. We're trying to make sure that we are active socially. I basically have to, as a person who worked for about 40 years, I have to reinvent myself. I always identified myself with my employment, and now I really have to find a new way of defining who I am, and I'm looking to try to change my own perception of who I am by getting more involved in organizations like the Commission on Aging and the Village in Howard.
Thank you, Joy.
Okay, what would you wish you had known prior to reaching this age? Well, prior, we still have 20 boxes in our garage, not open in 5 years. So I wish
Fresh.
I wish I had known that there are things you don't need, stuff you don't need in life. Okay, what preparations have you done? After we moved to Maryland, we went to see a lawyer. We had a new will done for the state, and we bought cemetery lot, and we consolidated our medical records. And I visited Riderwood in Silver Spring, which is very similar to Vantage House, so I know in the future that's a possibility. And then I updated a list and I gave to my daughters who live in this neighborhood, so they now may know where my lawyer, accountant, bank, Social Security, cemetery, investment, safety box key, relative contact information, life insurance, doctors, health insurance, they all have that information. Yay, joy! Because we travel and okay, so what I want to do in the future, still to be done, is I have so many family photo books. My daughter told me, you need to make them into a disc. We don't want to see your albums. And also label who's in the picture, because we don't know who they are. That's one. Note. Two, I want to write a biography for my grandchildren to let them know why I came to the United States. Third one is I'm being active. I volunteer for the Village in Howard. I try to stay fit. And so I want to postpone the day when I need to go to a retirement community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan?
Well, these days, to some extent, because of some things that have happened in my life in the past 3 months, I wish I had known at this point in my life that I wouldn't have any children to back me up. Many elderly people have to lead fairly lonely lives with no children to actually take on the responsibility and assisting them through the rest of their lives. I wish I had known that. I'm not sure exactly how I would have gotten prepared for it. But we're preparing for the rest of our lives, and looking at the next 10 years, certainly We'll have to relocate. We do not really want to be in a retirement home, Riderwood or Walkerwood. We really do like the independence of living, and we'll try to do that as long as we possibly can in our homes. And when illness strikes, I'm not interested in hanging around. I may have to move to Oregon, I'm not sure. Or try to be happy here in Maryland with medical marijuana. I don't know. But I don't want to be hanging around, as a blind, elderly, dependent person in a nursing home. That's my worst nightmare, and I trust I can avoid that.
Thank you, Ron. Mary?
Amen, Ron. I wish I had known about a wonderful program earlier called Transitions from Gilchrist Hospice. And essentially, one of the difficulties of caregiving is you have so little energy left to make the calls, to make the inquiries, to sort through the amazing amount of confusing and contradictory literature, that it's extremely helpful to have a social worker come sit side by side with contacts inside that can get you quick answers. My husband was a Korean War veteran, and I had thought that might be a road for at least respite. The answer was no. But at least I found out quickly the answer to that. And they helped us plan a course. My husband ended up passing away in Joseph Ritchie Hospice in Baltimore, and also was with Gilchrist Respite here in Columbia. And I learned things that I really needed to know, and I think everyone really needs to know about how to make that journey. In other words, if you have any money at all, whether to put that into perhaps residential assisted care living, all different possibilities for different income groups. They were very helpful in letting me know what was available to do that planning. You definitely want to get medical power of attorney as early as possible so you don't get into bad situations. I wish I had known about a website, because curiously I did not find this information from physicians, by a Dr. Barry Reisberg, elsinfo.org, who has done extensive research on the 7 stages of Alzheimer's disease. Again, the knowing what to expect, and extremely helpful because you know exactly what's going on, and again, can consult with a wonderful outfit like Gilchrist.
Can you spell that out?
Yes, his name, the website's name is www.alz, as in L's, and then info, info.org. And it's legitimate, authoritative information, extremely accurate from my finding. And that really helped us as a family. The third thing is to get family members into the home. We have 2 sons. One works in Africa and in Dublin now, but comes home frequently. My other son's about to move to LA. We had, because I had a 50th high school reunion I wanted to go to. I hadn't been out of town for 11 years, except for full-time working, because we had this situation at home. I left, and my husband was distraught, so they had to literally get him drunk in order to calm everything down. They learned very quickly what was going on, got involved, and we went through this whole journey together and really ended up extremely close as a family. And my husband ended up with a dignified death. I also wish I had known about groups like our fledgling village in Howard. I had gone to the Alzheimer's support group, of course. Everyone makes his or her way there. It's a wonderful social group, particularly Kindred Spirits part of it, for Alzheimer's patients in beginning and mid part of that disease. However, my husband did not want to go, he didn't realize what was going on. Long story. It was helpful to me, but it's really useful when you're a caretaker to have a larger perspective, the social perspective, people to share experiences with you directly. I would get up early to go to that walking group early Saturday morning because my husband was still asleep. I had to manage everything very carefully. And literally, it saved my sanity. I'm very, very grateful to them. So again, Village in Howard County, groups like this, really smart, active, wonderful people, are so helpful in this because, I'm just grabbing hold of life. I'm certainly not ready to give up. And this is exactly what happened. We ended up in a very good place, and I thank them for their part in it.
Thank you all panelists. Is there anyone in the audience that has questions to this panel group? They'll be happy to answer questions. Okay.
Good, ma'am.
We have a question. Hold it, come
Do
out.
you have any hints or advice about how to get back into the workforce at age 70?
I've been in the workforce. I'm going to turn 71 and I'm finally retiring. I took that advice about keeping Social Security as long as possible because it's going to be tight. But no, I'm sorry, I don't. Except to keep abreast of new technology. Don't lose that, even though it's confusing, because a lot of what I've pioneered online and online college teaching, for instance, is something that I will be able to continue to use. But no, I can't tell how to get back. I could never get out.
Okay. Another question, ma'am?
Yes, Mr. Brenner had mentioned about the livable homes.
Can you speak up?
There's a light down here. Tax, livable home tax. Chuck never heard the question.
Mr. Bruner had mentioned about the livable homes tax credit, and I'd be interested in knowing more about that.
Okay, the livable homes tax credit was enacted by Howard County about 4 years ago, I believe. It is a $100,000 set aside by the council, and you can get up to $2,500 as a 50% tax credit against improvements to your home, which are intended to make it more livable. The credit is not means-based. Anybody can apply for it who owns a home. It is not limited to one time. So if you have multiple projects, let's say year one you want to make one bathroom ADA compliant, and year two you want to make another bathroom ADA compliant, you can apply for that more than once. The maximum benefit in any 1 year is $2,500, equal to an expenditure of $5,000 for qualified expenditures. Qualified expenditures would include things like expanding doorways so that you can fit a wheelchair, ramps in your home, a Stairmaster or an elevator, a roll-in shower, a vanity that you can fit a wheelchair under, grab bars, strengthening walls to accept grab bars. There's a whole list on the website